game is an amateur game. I mean, the professional side of it, there are idols and heroes and fun to watch them play. But I mean, if it wasn't for amateur golf, there would be no golf.
You have to remember, when you play a golf course and you're out there for 4 hours or whatever, you're only hitting a ball for 15 minutes of that. So there's a lot of time to look around.
I'm Paul Jansen. I'm one of the founding members of Himalayas Golf. My background is in golf course architecture. Our company does just that. We design and build golf spaces. I mean, we work on big and small, although, a high percentage of our work is really in the small spaces, golf, indoor and outdoor, using grass and artificial turf. And I've been in the business now for, almost 25 years.
Interestingly, I was reading quite a bit about, I've obviously had to do a bit of research. It's great to have you on to start off with. And
thank you.
When did you make the pivot to start doing smaller form stuff?
That was when I met Dave Pels. So I met Dave Pels back in about 2016, 2017. So one of my founding members, James Wayne McDonald, who's based out on the West Coast. Wayne played professional golf, and he was good friends with Dave Pels, David Ledbetter, a few of the golfers. And I'm guessing, I'd been speaking with Wayne for some time about my travels to Asia. I was doing quite a bit of stuff out in Asia, from around about 2008 till about 2015. And he said, hey, why don't you pop down to Austin, Texas, or at least Dripping Springs, which is about an hour outside of Austin, where Dave had just built this backyard space on about 3 acres. I would say pop down there, flew down, met Dave, met his son Eddie Pels, who works with us now, and his wife JP, and began to speak about this space. We had 7 or 8 greens, he had 7 or 8 holes, and he had all this practice combined into the space. He had lag putting zones, and he had 1, 2, 3% putting zone. He had wedge targets. It was very, very much practice driven, and that's where he would bring all of his students, Phil Mickelson and Patrick Reed and, Tom Kite, the whole 9 yards, to practice. And it was all in artificial turf. And I thought, wow, I mean, this is, there's a lot of potential here. And that was kind of the aha moment for me. And, so we began speaking and, developing a plan. And I guess, through Dave Pels and through Wayne, we had some good business people, kind of backing us, and we created Pels Player Greens, and it's kind of grown from there. So, almost 10 years ago, we had that COVID period where it was somewhat quiet, but, it's been incredibly busy for us, since then.
Why did they take the pros down there? What was the reasoning to use?
Well, I mean, Dave, it's a few reasonings. I think golf courses and golf clubs didn't have, really good practice spaces for Dave to practice certain shots. So that was one of them. I guess if you take Phil Mickelson or Patrick Reed down to the local club, there's going to be a lot of people, encircling them and, asking them questions and whatnot.
2 of the best wedge players ever.
Yeah. I know Dave said to me at the get-go, he said that, all these golf clubs spend so much money on practice spaces, but, they're not really designed for practice. You walk on them and you don't even know how to practice. So he said he would rather create a space where he could practice certain shots, and he could do it in his baddie bathrobe. Really. So that's what he did. And I mean, in his space, like I said, roughly about 3 acres, he said that you could practice just about every shot within 100 yards, which is what you can do. I mean, Dave was a NASA scientist before he was a golf pro. He's a smart guy. And he had worked with a number of the turf manufacturers, because the whole space is in artificial turf. He'd worked with a number of the turf manufacturers to create turf that was the most realistic. So he, spent time and some money on that. And then with his son and some local guys, who work for us, down, in Austin, they would have spent about two years building the backyard. And like I said, kind of really built for practice. So you might look at it from a classic perspective and go like, shit, that's something out of Star Wars. But it's very, very much, a space where you can take your pros and you can, play and I guess train certain shots.
You've done a lot of research on artificial turf. Am I right in saying you've got a book out? I've not read your book.
No.
No?
Yes, no, Tubers, I do. So I wrote a book with Sinlawn, which are one of the biggest turf manufacturers around. And in fact, they're the guys who did the TGL. So at least kind of supplied the turf for that. So
okay, wow. Okay, so you really are one of the world's foremost specialists on this subject. Just so everyone.
Well, I got lucky, James, because when I met Dave Pels, he had already done a lot of research. So he put me in touch with all the big players. So I was then dealing with not the guys at the low level. I was dealing with their, R&D teams, with their CEOs, with their, so I got to learn a lot quickly.
What's the biggest mistakes that people make with AstroTurf?
So AstroTurf, what was the first artificial turf that went down in the Houston Astrodome, whatever it was, 50 years ago. So it's come a long way since then. Well, cheapers. So what are I guess, I think people have a negative perception of artificial turf based on what they see. And there's not a lot of good examples out there, to be honest. Although that's now, improving with some of the spaces that we're doing and some of the spaces, that others are doing. But really, the quality of some of the turf now, nylon turf, is really, really good and strong. I mean, so good that Phil Mickelson, Nick Faldo, Patrick Reed would want to build in their own backyards. So
Rory McIlroy's got one.
Rory too, so it can be incredibly realistic. I think one of the issues is, and I'm not going to tout myself and my team, and this was one of the things that we identified early on, James, is that a lot of these spaces were being built by non-golf people. So you had landscape people and you had just Joe Blogs thinking, hey, I can just stick something in my backyard. And that's where we came in and said, well, we can design a space. So we know how to design golf. Yes, grass greens, and there is a difference. But in fact, with artificial turf, you can do a lot more than with grass because you're not worried about mowing machines and you're not worried about wear and tear and you're not worried about entry exit points and, stuff like that. So your greens can be smaller too, and you can create as much cool stuff as any normal green, as any green that you'd see in Batty St. Andrews. And then we have a team of guys who built golf. So, building artificial turf spaces is probably a bit easier than building grass spaces because there's not as many moving parts. So when you think about, doing a USGA green spec, I mean, there's a lot of moving parts there. Irrigation, drainage, gravel layers, root zones, sand, you need a lot of smart folk. A lot of guys like yourself there. And I guess when you're building artificial turf, there's less layers. And so, so the turf was important. So, the R&D that's been done on that's been, really, really strong. And these artificial turf manufacturing companies now, I mean, they're doing quite well. So they're spending quite a bit of money on this stuff. And, they're obviously seeing through stuff like the TGL and stuff that we're doing and whatnot that, that there's a real demand for this. So, they're willing to spend, kind of money making it look like real. So I guess just going back to your question, I think people see driving bay mats and they see, John Smith's backyard and they think, wow, it's actually pretty crap. But in fact, there is potential to do something that is not crap and is actually really strong. It just needs the right turf. It just needs the right people designing and building it. And then I guess the realism. I mean, one of the biggest issues has always been the realism of the bounce. And again, Dave Pels spent a lot of time doing research and doing a lot of testing on this, and he came up with his patented shot stopper that we use, which is, I guess similar to building a USGA green. It's, an underlayment system that goes underneath the turf, which is a mix of foam, silica sand, rubber mix that gets what's compacted in there, and then the actual turf itself has like a rubber embossed backing, and that sits on top. And then you have sand on top. So it really is very, very receptive. And I'm probably getting a bit more technical here, but, I think, they've answered a lot of the issues with these spaces, in the past.
What do you think is the biggest difficulty then now?
Well, the sell, towards the golf clubs, because of the negative perception. I think, environmentally it's strong in terms of the limited input, but, I guess down the line, if you do replace it, there is the wastage there. It's never going to be 100% like a grass green. It might be 95%. Or even 97%, but it's never going to be exactly like a grass green. So that, that would be one. I guess the cost, the initial cost is probably a bit more than that. Well, it isn't. It certainly is a bit more than the cost of a grass green, but of course, the intersection of, the cost to maintain a grass green. I mean, if you look at a standard USGA green, cool season, warm season, you're probably looking at about $2 a square foot. So, thousands of bucks, or at least hundreds of thousands of bucks a year spent on what's it maintaining just greens. Whereas with an artificial turf green, the cost is a lot less. There is still maintenance. But your initial outlay cost is a bit more. So that would probably be the things that we witness as being the biggest.
How fascinating! I'm sorry, we've fallen into a hole that I didn't expect to fall into, but it really is amazing because there's a lot of things going on in the world of golf, but this is something that is, I would say, fairly new, and it's like how to describe it. The take up of the internet by the older crowd, it's like.
It's like when I was going to say, it's like when Sand Hills came online. What the hell? Or it's like when Betty St Andrews came on. I don't know. I'm just saying. But yes, there is a lot of probably 99% of people don't actually know what's going on there. It's probably much like the things going on at Tesla and at Google. There's probably a lot of things, there behind the scenes that, they're probably leaps and bounds ahead. And in terms of, the artificial turf space and that, it's certainly come a long way within the space of time that I've been involved in this.
My mum doesn't trust electric cars. She refuses to get an electric car. She just wants a combustion engine, and that's her. And it's fair enough. Like, it's what I know. She doesn't have to worry about what's going to happen in whatever years. She's and probably. By the time, she's just quite content with her. She still recycles. She does all the positives, but it's just she trusts a combustion car.
But one would think that sorry, and I'm speak a lot here, but I think the one cool thing that artificial turf has done is it's kind of grown the game in many ways. Before you couldn't have an indoor space. And before you couldn't stick something in a bloody shopping centre somewhere, I just think about here in Canada, where I am right now. We have an office here, and I'm here for the next few weeks. But probably 20 years ago, you could only play golf for 6 or 7 months of the year, and now there's all these spaces where you can go and bloody play golf 12 months of the year.
So, do you think the R&D into AstroTurf is pretty much linked to things like the TrackMan, to all these indoor.
Certainly speaking, TrackMan, InRange, Top Tracer, Foresight Sport. I know that there's a lot of kind of unity and talking, and there is a lot of words of communication between all of those bodies, and I speak with them a fair amount. Certainly, and golf pros too. Like I said, we're doing stuff with golf pros, and they speak and they give us input. And then when I speak to Sinlawn, they say, well, what was the problem? I'm like, well, the color of the turf or the speed or, this isn't that realistic. And then they just go back and make changes. And like I said, I mean, there is, these companies, and if I look at North America, I mean, 99% of the turf manufacturers are in one city in North America, Dalton, Georgia. So they're all talking. So they're in one space. So they're very, very reliant on information that we give them and others in our space, and in some ways we're kind of, the R&D guys as well, the kind of pioneering guys, but they, a lot of them see potential. And, you just got to look at, the TGL, which really is, I mean, the first PGA Tour event on artificial turf, which, if you think about other sports, and you being Scottish, I guess you would enjoy soccer. But I mean, if I think about cricket, kind of cricket had that transition, hey, where they had that test, a test match cricket for such a long time. And it was kind of, and I'm not saying golf's going to die.
Paul, I still play cricket. I still play cricket, and I play in Scotland. And for people who don't know, you need firm and fast, hard ground to play cricket on. And the only way we can get that, majority of our games in the shoulder season is with AstroTurf or with
yeah. So I got you. But I'm not kind of relating AstroTurf or artificial turf to cricket. I mean, what I'm saying is that if you look at the evolution of cricket and you kind of say, and you look at golf, and I'm not saying golf is anywhere near where cricket was 15 years ago, where, you had test cricket, which took 5 days. That's a long time. My wife and kids would never have kind of bought into that. And then they bought in T20 cricket, which is now the most popular form of cricket, and everyone bloody plays it. Everyone watches it, and it only takes 3 or 4 hours, and now all these top cricketers are making hundreds of millions, whereas before they were making, $1 million. And now you have all this massive viewership, and now my wife will, go and watch it. I'm just saying, if you look at golf, I mean, I think, you'll obviously have that great classic golf, and that's not going away, and it's very, very, very healthy. But I think there's that kind of movement into that, more of that entertainment kind of different form of golf. And, maybe it's not kind of your old school classic stuff, but I can see that space. There's a great saying by Wayne Gretzky. I don't go to where the puck is. Great players don't go to where the puck is. Great players go to where the puck's going to be. Yeah. I think that if in sport or in anything, if you don't kind of move with the times, I think, you'll probably come unstuck somewhere. So.
It's so true. And it's so interesting, right? Because golf is viewership in terms of golf 4-day stuff is a bunch of old men who've got nothing to do and are bored at home. Mm-hmm. And no offense to every single person that probably listens to this podcast, there is needing to be a push, a reinvention of essentially what we've done for years. And let's be honest, the live guys tried to do it and still trying to do it. Mm-hmm. And TGL is a nighttime activity like the T20. But golf wasn't played over 4 days stroke play 100 years ago. It was all match play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I know the guys are trying to do a bit of that by doing things like the match and all these kind of one-off events that are engaging, but I don't know if we have found the solution yet, whether TGL is the solution. That's the question.
Yeah, not sure. But, for me, it's quite encouraging to see all these outlets. Like I said, I think you get a bit stagnant if you don't change and you don't move into that a different space. At least from my perspective. I mean, I massively appreciate great golf, and that's been my background, and that's been how I learned this game. Going and seeing good golf and going and seeing interesting and unique golf. But certainly in the space that we live, for me to kind of see that growth and people being interested in that is quite encouraging, and that doesn't seem to be slowing down. I mean, we're getting a lot more inquiries.
Do you think we'll ever see a great golf course built with artificial turf?
I don't know. I mean, from an environmental perspective, I mean, I'm not sure that is the best thing. But like I said, it's not impossible because you can do just as much using artificial turf as you can with grass. In fact, you could probably make it more interesting. Imagine, a kind of St. Andrews with all the humps and bumps, but even more kind of demanding because you're not worried about scalping and mowing machines and all of that stuff. And you can get the turf to run fast, and you can have, I was with one of my partners, Gareth Rafusky, who's a golf coach, last week, and we're looking at a 400 square meter, about a 4,000 square foot space. And in that space, he's got a 200 square meter green. And we were like, okay, well, within this green, we're going to have a section that runs at 10 speed, a section that runs at 11 speed. We'll have a section that's bouncy. We have a section that's, non-bouncy. So, i.e., if he's got Corey Connors there or Nick Taylor, and they're going to go and play, North Berwick or Ghislaine next week, it's going to be a bit more bouncy than going to go and play a golf course in northern Chicago, the next week. So all within this 200 square meters, we can create all these environments. And then around the side, we're like, we can put in a cool season grass. We can do a warm season kikuyu, a cool season fescue, where we can have a tight lie, so you can do a lot more within a smaller environment. And that to me is quite cool.
That's very cool.
I don't think it's impossible that you can't do something really cool. It's just who's got the money to do it. Maybe in Bloody Saudi. I wouldn't know, but you could certainly do something cool.
You would think that somewhere like Saudi or Abu Dhabi or UAE would be the right place for somewhere like that, where grass is hard to grow.
Yeah, well, artificial turf battles more in the heat versus the cold, so it can be sat in 300 degrees Celsius minus, and it's absolutely fine. But if it's if it gets beyond, 70 degrees Celsius, and I'd have to check that, or 100, and I guess out in Saudi with the sand and whatnot, it get quite hot. But again, with this artificial turf now, some of the turf has heat blocks, so they reduce the heat of the turf. So there's ways, much like when the first Apple phone came out, it was very basic, and then all this kind of input and feedback. They're kind of going, okay, well, if we're going to do stuff in Saudi Arabia, well, the heat of the heat and the turf temperature is high, so how do we reduce that? So they'll find a way. They're a lot more smarter than me.
Let's move on to your journey and your bit about your how you got into golf course architecture, because we've just spent 20 minutes talking about artificial turf. And Paul,
on your part,
if you could not pay me to talk about artificial turf before this conversation, genuinely, but that was fascinating, really interesting. Let's talk about a wee bit about how you got into golf course architecture.
Well,
where did it all start?
Where it all started. Well, I was born in Zimbabwe. Back then it was Southern Rhodesia. So that's how long ago I was born. And then and then the family moved down to Durban, South Africa. I'm not sure if you've ever been to South Africa, but Durban's, Durbs is on the East Coast. Lovely city, probably 2 or 3 million folk, and schooled there, and that's where I started. So there was a municipal course next to Durban Country Club. So if you'll probably know Durban Country Club. But there was a municipal course next door called Windsor. I'm not sure if it's called that anymore, but they had a little mashie course. A mashie course being a little par 3, or almost a little chip and putt course, 50 to 100 yards. And I lived, at least we lived up on the hill in Morningside, and I used to trek down with my sticks and just play this little mashie course, and it was almost free to play. I think you could just about walk on, and then they had a pro shop just across the road, and they had a little green there, and I used to hit shots. And then I went to Durban Boys High, which was a good sporting school, a great cricket school, a great rugby school, and also a great golf school. Actually, Rory Sabatini was a year above me at school, and a few others. So they had a golf team, and I played a bit of golf there with the golf team, and then I became a member at Royal Durban, which again shouldn't be mixed up with Durban Country Club. Royal Durban is based in the Gravel racetrack, so it's got an actual horse racetrack around the course, and it's actually somewhat linksy. Actually, it's very, very open. I mean, it's not on the sea, and it's kikuyu grass, so it's not a very linksy bounce. But so I was a member there, and when you're a member at Royal Durban, you had reciprocity at just about every golf course in South Africa. So when we travelled, be it for sport or a break, I would try and play golf, and it was certainly very, very cheap playing golf back then. I mean, if I recall a membership, and this would have been in the late 80s, early 90s, a membership at Royal Durban would have been something like 200 Rand. And if you look at, I think 200 Rand today is about £10, and that gave me access to the club every day, except for Saturday morning, and I could go out and just putt and practice and then go and play 9 holes. And of course I had friends around, and so that was it. And kind of, I got the bug, and, I guess the rest is history. I love sport. I mean, I love rugby growing up, and I love cricket and the beach.
Sports you have to love if you're South African, right?
Yeah.
How did you become a golf course architect then?
Hell, that's a great question. And, I guess when I think about the guys today, and they talking about, I knew, Mackenzie and Donald Ross and Hodgkin and, Colt and all of those guys. I probably didn't even know those guys until I probably, started to, kind of started my, degree art, and, well, not my degree. I started my work out in Washington, D.C., but I did a degree in town planning because I'd always been fascinated in big scale design, big scale landscape design, kind of city planning. And I guess by my second or third year, I was like, shit, I don't want to be stuck in the office here, doing dumb permits or site plan approvals. I mean, that's just not stuff that I enjoy. And how can I merge design with a passion for sport and, particularly golf? And I guess back then it was the early days of the internet. And I did some research, and there was, the American Society of Golf Course Architects, and there was back then it was the British Society of Golf Course Architects. It's now the, European. And I wrote to, a number of members, and I ended up doing an internship in Washington, D.C. for a group called L. Clark and Associates. So just outside of Washington, D.C. in a town called Kensington. And I recall flying into Washington, D.C. I would have been, so this was after 4 years of studies, I would have been probably 22 or 23. And it was the first time I actually seen snow. So I remember landing in Dallas Airport in Washington, D.C. and getting picked up in this white snow. But so that was kind of my first introduction to I guess golf course design. What was the time I spent with the guys at L. Clark and Associates, and I'm still friends with a few of them. I mean, Tom Clark, I saw Tom Clark. I mean, Tom could be probably 80 now. I saw him last year. I was down in Virginia with him, and then Jim Savone, who was one of the architects at the time, he's just bought a golf club in Pennsylvania, and I spent a day with him last year. So, I'm still friendly with them. And then, and then from there, I ended up in the UK. So I had a year internship, in DC, and I came into the US, on a certain visa. So I had to leave, and then come back on another visa, and they were applying for that. And then, you had the Twin Towers effect, and I was kind of stuck in London, UK, without much bloody money. And I was like, shit, what do I do? And, I back then I had spoken to a few course architects, and I was, Steele and, Hawtrey, and there was no work. And I guess through my studies, I'd done GIS, Geographic Information Systems. And back then, it was new. And it was basic. I mean, now when you think about, maps and Waze and all of these great systems, but back then it was new. And I was employed as a consultant for the railways to help them build their GIS systems. So, I mean, I think about Scotland. I used to work out in Euston, in London, and King's Cross, and I worked on the West Coast Main Line. But I kind of, was involved in all the mapping mapping and the mapping intelligence on that. And I was making good money. And whilst I was not in the design field, I was out in London buying all the golf books, so I was at Sports Pages and Foils and Waterstones. So so in those few years between me working as a course designer, I was still doing a lot of that stuff. And then most weekends I was flying around. I was up in Scotland, I was in Ireland, I was in Holland, I was in France, so I really got a really good grounding in the 2 or 3 years that I was outside of the business, in the sense that I got to see all the great golf, well, I say all of them, a lot of the great golf courses. And I probably didn't have any mentorship, so there was no, top 100 saying, hey, these are the top golf courses, so go and see them. It was kind of me just kind of, hey, it'd be quite cool to go and see the stuff around Prestwick. It'd be quite cool to go and see the stuff out in, the Ring of Kerry, and quite cool to go and see the stuff out in Ballyholland. So that, and then, I got a call in 2000, I think early 2004, to get back into things. And I started to work with the Felder group back then.
No one was going out to Holland in 2000.
No.
Like, what?
I know. Well, I mean, now, now when people say, oh, Utrecht, Japan, and Kennemai, and Norkvai, and Den Haag, and Hilversum, I was like, well, yeah, I mean, I'd seen all of those. And then I was in Belgium. I went to, Nokke, Royal Zoet, and obviously Royal Antwerp, and, there's a few others. And, I mean, back then it was, there was no kind of guidance. It was kind of just, and I'd obviously spoken with Woodford folks. And when I was actually the Dutch trip, because I'd gone out a few times, I'd spoken with Nick Felder, about this. And, I said, I went and looked at a golf project right next door to the airport in Rotterdam. And I said to him, what are your favorite golf courses, in, the kind of, in those Badie countries? And he said, he really loves Royal Zoet, because he had won there before. And then he'd said he liked, I think it was Noordvai. So, so those were two that I had seen before. And I went back and, so those are all places now that are all the rage. But back then it was kind of like, who are you, and why are you very interested in a Mama club? And I think back then, I think Frank Pont had just started to do work and stuff. So, yeah.
So what was the next journey after that? You've done your time, and then where was next?
Well, shit. So I worked with Nick, and then I still do work with Nick, but I started my own company. So what happened was I was based in London. So when I started with Nick, the office was in Victoria, and then they moved to Putney, and then they moved to Windsor. And around about the time they moved from Putney to Windsor, my wife got a job opportunity. So she was with Procter and Gamble, and they were like, hey, we got a senior position for you in Geneva. So I then approached Nick and his manager at the time. I said, listen, this is a great opportunity for my wife. I'd like to move across there. And still work with you. We came to some agreement that I would still work with them as a consultant, and I still had work that I was doing with them. And I guess I had, the opportunity to start my own company too. So, we moved to Switzerland, I think in 2008, and I started Jansen Golf, roughly around about 2009 or 10, while still doing stuff with Nick. And then continued to do work as Jansen Golf. And then, in 2011, we decided, cheapest man, we had kids, and we decided to move out to North America. So we chose Canada, and that was mostly because of my wife. She was a big fan of it here, and and then I guess that led into the whole Pell stuff back in 2017.
What projects did you work with Nick on, and was there any? What was the one you liked the most?
And most course architects will say this. There's a lot of projects that we worked on that never got finished. But, some of the more memorable ones, I worked on Cornelia down in Turkey. That was a really fun one. I helped out some of the associates, was it Ledreborg in Denmark. I did Vietnam, Lanco, so those were kind of memorable ones. The one that I'm still working on now with Nick Ponte de Pago, that one started back in 2005 or 6.
Wow.
So those would be the more memorable ones. I guess early days, it was more, Europe and America. And then when you had the market crash, the work kind of moved out to, Asia.
This episode is brought to you by the Lockhart Travel Club. We believe golf is more than a game. It's a journey. A journey we've made across 34 of the world's top 100 courses last year. And now is your turn. We curate bespoke travel experiences for passionate golfers who expect nothing but the best. Membership is limited, so join us at LockhartTravelClub.com.
What was the unique difference between Asia and Europe and America?
Well, was it Asia's a bit more Wild West? Europe and America. You have access to a lot more specialized people and machinery, and there were a lot more examples of golf. Whereas Asia, it was like you were like trailblazing. You were kind of working with people out there that had never seen a bloody golf club, and hard to find certain equipment. Sometimes it was tough to get certain shapers out to, certain parts, of the world out there. I guess there was sometimes travel challenges. A lot of these projects, when I think about it, when we went in there, I think about, Laguna Lanco, in Da Nang. And if you go to Da Nang now, there's every single nice bloody hotel there. But when we first went into Da Nang, there was only 2 hotels that took bloody credit cards. And there was one, we stayed in called the Green Plaza. It was just very, 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 very basic. And actually, when we got to the site the first time, you actually couldn't access the site by road. You had to get to, catch a bloody boat around. And then, it was kind of nuts. And, so there was a lot of those kind of, challenges, infrastructure, people, I say people, but, people with experience, language barriers, you had a lot of, translators. But for me, it was fun. If you kind of look at my life and my history, I love travel, and I've been all around the world, and I particularly like, I guess what most people would say is probably, a bit more challenging travel, going to places that are a bit more off the beaten track. And I love that. I love that sense of adventure and discovery. And maybe that was, based on me growing up in bloody Africa, but, kind of going to these places and kind of experiencing a bit of the culture. And, when I think about, the inspirations to me, it's not just the golf courses I've seen. It's the kind of the land. And, if I think about Vietnam, we had about 5 hectares of rice paddy fields weaving through to the Gulf, and I got that idea by just driving around and through the Baddy Mountains and just seeing all these rice paddy fields and folks working, and, I love that. I love going and, exploring,
authentic landscape.
Yeah, so that would be, those would be the big challenges. But fun, great fun. Now when I hear folks going to Asia, I'm like, well, it's a lot easier than back in my days. Some of the roads and the planes and the airports. The first time going back to Da Nang, the first time we flew into Da Nang, the airport was like a shed. It was as basic as it came. And now, none of the airports got a Burger King and hotels and, and all of that.
Out of interest, what was the most difficult moment you had when you were building out in these Asian areas?
Sri Lanka, actually. And this is a story, and I'm not sure whether you're going to delete it or not. But so I don't know if you've heard of the Royal Colombo Golf Club.
I've not, but I know.
No, well, again, it's part of the royal, kind of group of clubs. So I don't know how many there are, maybe 75 or so. But Royal Colombo is a really cool club. It's in the middle of Colombo, which is the capital city of Sri Lanka. And what's cool about it, well, a few things. One, it's on like 93 acres of land, and they do about 100,000 rounds of golf, which is nuts. But they got a railway track, a live railway track running through the middle of the golf. So it's not like Daddy Scotland where, you've got railway tracks, but it's off of two to the side. So they've got a live railway track. And, during peak hour, trains are coming through every 15, 20 minutes, often jam-packed. And you can stand there on some tees and you can actually touch the train. I mean, it's absolutely was a daddy bananas. But I was with the commission to build them some new practice holes. So they had this piece of land off to the side of the one hole, and they were concerned that if they didn't use it, the government would take it back, or, at least, would, develop on it. So they wanted me to build an extra hole that they could use for a practice hole, but they could also shut down a hole, and then, do maintenance, on the other 18 holes, and then also come in and do all their, teeing areas as well as their practice range. I mean, this would have been more than 10 years ago. And I bought in, a shaper PM. I had a friend who worked with me who was based in Nepal, of all places, and he actually came in, and then a few others. But he got sick and had to go back, and I didn't have anyone on the ground there for about 8 weeks. So I actually flew in there, and I love Sri Lanka. I love it. I mean, it's an absolutely superb place. I mean, if no one's been, it's an unbelievable place, and just so much variety within this small island. But I remember going in there and, I mean, again, no one there wanted to work. No one there knew about golf, and we needed to get this bloody thing built, at least this hole built, before the monsoon. And Sri Lanka's got 2 monsoon periods. And, so I came in there, and I think the second day I got rid of all the standard workers, and, along the railway line, every day driving into the golf club, there's all these guys that would come off of the railway lines, and they would ask you for golf balls and money and whatnot. And they're all drugged up. And, me being me, and, I guess, when you work in all these kind of places, you just know how to kind of, look to problem solve quickly. And I was like, well, we got to get this done. So what if I just bring in all these kind of drug addicts off of the railway lines and get them to come and work? And, so I remember calling up a few guys. I said, how many of your friends do you have? And they said, well, I don't know, whatever. And I remember the next day, about 15 of them turning up, and what they wanted first up was half their pay. First up. So I used to hand them whatever it was, $10 first up, and they would leave for about half an hour and then come back drugged up. But they would work like absolute machines for about 4 hours. Their eyes were like this, and they would just dig me with the trench, and shit, it was done. Or, kind of tap this and it was done. Or and, so that kind of work worked a charm. But that was kind of, Chip, was one of the challenges that you had to find a quick solution, or else you would come unstuck. And of course, out there, there wasn't like here or in Europe where I could call upon a shaper, that's an island, and come across, tomorrow, or, so it was kind of one of those ones where I had to find a better solution quickly. But yeah, so that would have been that. The one good thing about that was that it was Sri Lanka. It wasn't the middle of bloody China. It was a nice place to go. I had a nice flat on the beach there, and I had a nice little space at this clubhouse that was 150 years old, and it was old and kind of colonial. And I used to have my tea and butter cake, and I used to go and get the guys to I guess, go and buy me fruit and veg, and then I would bring it to the club, and then they would cut it all. So, it's a great time, but it was kind of challenging, in terms of the construction. And then, we'd probably got about 85% done with the holes and with the tees, and then the rain started, and of course that became a bit of a mess for a while. But yeah, we eventually got it done. But, yeah.
Does it cause a huge amount of erosion?
Well, not so much erosion. The issue we had there was that it was very clayey, heavy soil. So we had machines getting stuck, and it was hard to do shaping, and dump trucks getting stuck. So we had, excavators behind them, pushing them out of all these mud traps. But no, not much erosion. Actually, a place where we had a lot of erosion was Vietnam, actually in Lanco. They had a few serious storms there, and that was a sand site. And we had big sections of sand, move quickly there. Sand's a great medium to build golf, but it's a shit medium to obviously grow golf. And out in Vietnam, where you have, or at least out in Asia, where you have some serious weather, if you're not grassing, or you don't have grass established and it's exposed, and you have a heavy rainfall there, and it's seriously heavy, you could lose thousands of cubes of dirt, at least sand. So yeah, Sri Lanka was tougher in the sense that the water just didn't drain, and it just kept on bloody raining, which made it, a lot slower.
Yeah, so, very much so. There's God, I'm still computing the fact that you've just got a bunch of guys off the live train.
Shit, man. So, I'm not sure whether I should tell that story. I tell my team that, and they laugh, but that's a true story. And yeah, again, that's the one thing that I've learned the most, I think, by working in these challenging places, is that you got to make a plan, and make a plan quickly. And I think that if I just worked in North America or in Europe, I'd probably be in a bit more spoon-fed. And when, the shit hits the fan, it might have taken me a bit longer, So no, I don't get as stressed if something goes down, because I'm like, well, it can't be any bloody worse than, what went down in bloody Sri Lanka or Indonesia or shit, wherever.
Do you find that South Africans, I've just, for some reason, I've looked into this. There's quite a few golf courses out in the modern new builds that would be in Asia or Turkey or wherever. A lot of South Africans have been involved in those constructions. Is that because there's a ring fence of American and UK architects, or in the mature markets? Well,
in terms of workers, South Africans tend to be quite good chameleons. By that, they tend to adjust to certain environments fairly quickly and fairly easy. They're very hard working. So that helps. And I guess, there's probably not as many opportunities in South Africa as there are abroad. So when they get the opportunity, it's, they would grab it. I've got two South Africans who work for me, based out in Cape Town, and they're absolutely brilliant, and I send them around the world. And they can fit in very, very, very quickly. They're listen, I'm not going to say that they're tougher than my other guys, because cheap as my what's the team's good. But it doesn't take them long to adjust, and they don't mind about working, 16 hours a day for 7 days a week. And, they don't complain, and they're good, and they're tough, and they've got a great attitude. So I think that helps, and maybe because they haven't been as spoon-fed as perhaps, a lot of the Western world, and that's going to sound bad, but it's probably true.
On a different note, if you met yourself 25 years ago in DC or London, what would you tell yourself?
Oh, wow. So I've done so much travel. I've done 70 countries, but I haven't really enjoyed a lot of that travel, and that's because I've just flown in, gone to site, and left. And I think that I would say to myself, just spend a bit more time enjoying yourself, and taking in the sights and sounds, and maybe, I mean, that would certainly be one. I think, what would be another one? I mean, patience, there's been times where I've obviously tried to push things too quickly. And I think, I think that if you have a process and, you kind of stick by it and you're positive and that, you're going to do fine. I think just, time. I mean, when I sit here now and with my team and me being almost 50, and a lot of the guys around me are, late 20s, 30s. And I think, man, I'm more than halfway through my life. I'm, probably whatever it is, two-thirds of the way through. I probably should have, spent a bit more time enjoying things versus just being pretty full on. So I think that would be the one. Just kind of, take out a bit more time and enjoy things versus just being so focused on kind of moving forward.
No, that's very interesting.
So now I'm actually doing a lot more of that. So for instance, I was in Madeira last month, and versus flying right back, I was like, no, I'm going to fly into the Azores because I've always been keen to see Furness, which is I think an old Mackenzie Ross course who did with Turnberry. And so obviously I reached out to the folks who run that golf course, which is the government. And I said, hey, I'm going to come through, can you introduce me to the guys? I'd like to spend a few days there. And that's exactly what I did. I flew in, I had, I think 4 days. I rented a car. I drove around the island. I went and saw the 2 golf courses. I just took in the sights and sounds and it was fun. Yeah.
What did you think of the golf course?
I liked it a lot. Chip, is the one thing about these, when you think about these very old school golf courses and, Furness, Morelia, places like that, they don't have a lot of money. So they haven't changed a lot. So it's got a lot of character and, and there's a lot of fun. And, so when you kind of play it, it's very old school. And, the greens are wild. I mean, I suppose if they had a lot of money, they would have got someone in there and kind of, flattened the greens and made it a bit more, kind of like rule based and, I don't know what's the word, so it's kind of non-rule based and it's a bit, there's like things there that you wouldn't do today, but it's cool. And because they haven't had money to change it, you have these kind of a really cool routing and then you have some really cool greens and holes and, you got the kind of sights and sounds of Furness around you, which is really cool. And then in the other course there, they have all these rock walls and ruins and, I love that. I really love that. So they have a really strong sense of belonging. And again, I mean, that's because I think it's quite cool design that they've kind of incorporated a lot of that within the golf and just, they haven't had money to kind of, change things.
What do you think is the most important thing to you when you're designing a golf course?
Sense of place. I mean, I think, for me, I would want my wife, my kids to walk the course and enjoy it. And, as much as I love Shinnecock Hills, or Betty St. Andrews, I'm sure that if they played that, they'll go like, well, or at least walk that, they'll go like, oh shit, a brick. This is just, they're great courses in terms of, strategy and all of that. But I just love, the kind of the sense of adventure. So again, going back to Lanco, looking at the course we're doing in Madeira with all the rock walls and the levadas and stuff, just that, routing, clearly, the route taking you to all the cool spots and then just, incorporating all of that within the golf, be it on the site or off the site, and again, it'd be a place where I could walk with my wife and she goes like, well, that's cool. What great views. And I love the rock walls and, there's a mango tree there. Let me just grab a baby mango. Actually, I was actually speaking with a golfer the other day, and I said to them, I used to play a lot of golf at Durban Country Club. And he said to me, I love Durban Country Club because there's all these baby banana trees there and baby monkeys. And I was like, oh, okay, so you didn't like the course. But that was the thing that stuck with him was that, hey, all the kind of naturalism and the kind of wildlife was really cool. And that to me is probably, well, it's certainly not probably, it's the most important thing.
Yeah, the uniqueness of environment you can build a golf course and really builds on your experience.
Yeah, 100%. And I've seen some really, really cool ones around the world. I mean, if I think about it, I mean, a place like Burma, I went out to Burma, James, again, I mean, it would be more than 10 years ago. I used to do a lot of speaking events, and the RNA did this Asian tour where we did like Delhi and Tokyo and Seoul, and I made the mistake saying to Dominic Wall, who's still the head of the RNA for Asia Pacific, I said, I've always been fascinated by Burma, and I've heard that there's a few golf courses there. And he said, don't worry, Paul, I'll arrange it all for you. And there's 130 golf clubs in Burma. Which kind of like blew me away. And, anyway, a few months later, he had arranged for the Burmese or whatever, Myanmar Golf Association to meet me in Yangon, the old Rangoon. And we flew, so we looked at golf courses around Yangon, I think they're all Yangon, I think it is, which is more than, 100 years old. And then we flew up to Mandalay, and then we flew into the old town Bagan, which is unbelievable. I mean, if you haven't seen Bagan, it's kind of one of the great places in the world. I mean, you would have flying in. They've got about 5,000 ancient pagodas, but there they have these like golf courses that are just the worst maintained golf courses in the world. But you're playing alongside these ancient pagodas, and you got these volcanoes, out at Mount Popa, and all these kind of weird kind of cool things. And and I look back at that, and I'm like, wow. I mean, that was just so cool. Or you kind of go and play golf in South Africa. I mean, you go and play golf at Skakuza or Sabi River or bloody Elements, and you got, electric fences around the bloody greens because you got crocodiles and bloody, hippos in the, the bloody water features, and you got zebras and giraffes walking across. So yeah, so that's kind of stuff that I love.
Yeah. I completely understand that. I played golf in Muthaiga, but never in South Africa.
And this is actually a Tom Doak story, actually. I don't know if Tom's been on your...
we haven't had Tom. We've had a lot of his disciples, so we've had...
So what's the Tom... what's the Tom did... what's the Tom does his book? What's his book called? The
Confidential Guide.
And he reached out to me and stuff, and about doing some stuff in Africa. And I said, listen, Tom, I'm going down to Kenya. The Kenyan Golf Union have invited me to go down and do a speaking event down there. I said, well, why don't you come down to Kenya with me, and we'll also go into northern Zambia, and we'll see some golf, because I've always been keen to see, in particular, the courses in northern Zambia, in the old Copperbelt region. So, I mean, great on him. I would have met him in Nairobi, and we spent about 10 days. The Kenyan Golf Union took us out to all of the golf courses around Nairobi, Karen Golf Club, Sagona, Lemeru, the Railway Club, which was great. I mean, I think what's at Sagona could be a Tom Simpson course. I mean, that's certainly the ground zero for Kikuyu grass. I mean, that's where Kikuyu grass comes from. I mean, that's in the district of Kikuyu. And that's really cool, because you've got, I think, all those tea plantations around. And then from there, we flew into northern Zambia, and were taken around to a few of those really cool courses there, in Ndola, in Kana, kind of forget a few of the other names, but I mean, those were these kind of, because northern Zambia's got these massive big mines, open cast mines, and all these expats that would come in would kind of stay in all these kind of compounds, which had all these country clubs and tennis courts and really cool old school clubs. So you would drive through the towns, and it was like potholes and a bit kind of manic. And then you would get into the doors, and it'll be like, what the hell? This is like, Augusta National. And no, I mean, seriously? I mean, you just got to look up in Kana, to see what I mean. I mean, it's a really cool course, and a lot of wildlife, and, well maintained fairways and greens, and, you would have felt like you were in Africa too, because it's just very, very open, and you could just see the kind of savannah and stuff. And Tom was a great sport. I mean, I think we had 2 or 3 flat tires, and stopped by cops, paying off cops and stuff. And he was great. So
there's something very special about Africa and just the way you have to deal with things. And I can imagine for someone, Tom's done a lot of traveling.
Well, what's it? Tom couldn't bloody drive a bloody manual car. And of course, out there it was on the, well, I'm sure he'll say he can, but out there it's on the, what's it, the left-hand side of the road. And of course, the sticks on the right side. And I can drive manuals. So I was driving a bloody manual, and which was quite fun.
That's quite the journey.
Yeah, it was fun. I mean, and again, I mean, that's stuff that I love. And I think it was, I'm sure it was a lot easier for him because I kind of knew the scene and, the food and how to eat the food. And maybe there were things there that he stressed about that I said, don't stress about. I think the biggest stress there was really was, it was a big malaria zone, at least in northern Zambia. And then around about the time, about 100 miles away in the Congo, they had an Ebola outbreak. And of course, Ebola doesn't know borders, just like with the malaria. So, so those are things, you need to kind of watch out for. But yeah, I mean, it was all good. No, it was great. You had fun, I think.
I can imagine there would have been some incredible conversations that would have on those long drives.
Yeah. I mean, Tom's a great guy in the sense that he's very, very open book, and I enjoy that, and I'm very, very much the same. I mean, I just said, haha, I see it. And, he's really cool when it comes to sharing information and sharing ideas and, listening and, I guess, his feedback's great. And yeah, just a really, really cool guy that was do with the stuff, with, on these was the trips, and we still stay in touch. In fact, we've just completed a project in Paraparamu in New Zealand, which has a great golf course there, a putting course. And two of my guys wanted to play golf. And so I just reached out to Tom. I said, Tom, can you just arrange some golf? So he arranged a Cape Kidnappers for them, Tarairi, and I could have been Arrowtown, I think. And anyway, so he's always good.
Not bad. Pretty good group.
Yeah. Fun. I mean, those are all trips that I love and cherish the most, and just going on those trips with someone else, I think is really, really cool, because I've been on a number of trips by myself. And I'm like, it'd be really cool to kind of share this with, maybe someone. I mean, my wife's not that keen. My wife keeps on saying to me to just be careful and make sure I don't come back with a bloody parasite or, something. But, you know what? I don't do much of those anymore. I mean, I now send my teams out to these places, and they keen to go. So.
Yeah, I can imagine. Sounds like an absolute adventure. Especially if you've got a bunch of guys who are 25, 30 running around. I'd be all over that like a rash when I was.
Yeah, well, I took out, again, before COVID, we were doing some work out in Dakar, Bangladesh. And I took out one of my guys there and he was petrified. But of course, when we got there, I mean, just, we had guys, I'd have to send you some pictures, but, we had guys walking behind us with umbrellas and chairs, and it was like, shit, man, 100 years ago, we had like guys coming with coconuts and peeling out Betty oranges, and
Please send me photos of that.
No, well,
that'd make a great.
I had a great one with myself and the client. His name was the Brigadier Salam Akhtar, who was probably the second or third most important person in Bangladesh. He was the head of the UN during the war in Bosnia in the 90s.
Oh, wow.
A wonderful guy. And I got a picture of him and me sitting there, and the shapers are out doing the work. And there's him there and me on two chairs, and a guy behind with an umbrella behind us both, and then a guy there with like some food. It was like, anyway, it was, but those are all things that I love and, kind of cherish.
I've got one last question for you that I always ask everyone on their first pod. What's your top 5 favorite golf courses? So not the best, your favorites.
Yeah. West Sussex, is my number one. I love that place. Kawana in Japan, just because I think that's the best golf course I've seen on a really tough parcel of land. Kamati Port in South Africa, just because it's a 9-hole course and it's super natural and it's super African, because you're right up against the national park and you've got wildlife running around. In fact, you got the national park fence right next to it, and you got the Limpopo River, so you can stand there on the 1 tee and you can see, lions attacking, flipping giraffe, and you can see crocodiles coming up from the bloody river and stuff. So that's there. I like Shinnecock Hills, I guess, for, just the, kind of strategy and the land and how it looks. So that's 4. Oh gosh, what would be the 5th? But I like Royal County Down. That was a place, I think, when I went to the first time, I was probably the most blown away by. Like, wow, this is cool and this is different. So probably those 5.
It's that's the most eclectic group I've ever had.
Okay.
So you
one
want
of the
that
really
prize.
cool ones that I often bring up is a course in the jungles of Indonesia in a place called Bogor called Jagawari, which is an old Peter Thompson course, and that's also unbelievably cool. And that's got these like massive rivers running through it, and you could just imagine pythons coming out of the bush and all sorts. But that's a really cool one too that I've often on my head. And then one more, I guess. Sorry, and this is 7. For like absolute crazy uniqueness would be Nurelia in the tea plantations of Sri Lanka. So what would happen there was, the English built this golf course 130 years ago, and they definitely didn't have any money to do work. So nothing's changed, except the city's now got bigger and it's now up against the golf, and it's now intertwined within the golf. So you got holes there. I think about the 4th hole, I think it is, or the 5th hole, where you hit your tee shot over the main road into the national park. So I guess part of the golf course has kind of also become like a park where folks play cricket and badminton, and then you right angle into the green, which is now surrounded by the city. So you got these 5 or 6 story skyscrapers, and they're right up against the green. So, that's sort of stuff that you wouldn't see anywhere else, or certainly wouldn't be able to design these days. But that's a really cool one that also, I often think about.
That's so unique. That's really cool.
Yeah.
I really do want to go out and explore these wonderful oddities of golf.
Yeah. There are so many golf courses. That's the thing. Yes, you guys do, I'm sure, a great job advertising some unbelievable golf courses. But every golf course has a great story to tell. And, there's 30,000 golf courses, and there's always something you can learn from a course. Or at least most of them, I would think. But certainly these like ultra unique ones too that are, they're really cool. And certainly from my perspective too, it's kind of like, it's almost given me the confidence that I can kind of do a bit more kind of unique, wacky things because it's been done. Whereas I think that if I hadn't seen that, I'd be like, gosh.
It's inspirational, right? So there's lots of different examples of that across golf historically, you look at the 18th at St Andrews. It's a great example of a golf hole that no one would have built that golf hole unless someone bravely did it first. Yeah,
100%. There are so many great examples in the first world, if I can use that term. You look at the UK, Brancaster is a great one. Royal West Norfolk. That's pretty unique and different.
I love that place.
I don't know if it's still there, but when I went there 20 odd years ago, it looked like it was going to fall down. But the very fact that you walk through the beach to get to the first hole, and the first hole on the 18th are like crossing holes, and then it's just like a, and it's cool. There's all of those kind of cool examples. Hoy Lake, although that's been, I think, kind of dumbed down a bit. But there's so many great examples around the UK and the US, and it's interesting. The courses you name are just Hoy Lake's another example, and West Sussex I know is an example of you ask someone their opinion and they say they don't like it. Their opinion isn't really worth much. Yeah. Okay, interesting. I didn't know.
That's someone I've heard that a few times from people, that if you don't like those golf courses and you don't find something that you enjoy in it, then it means you're not looking at the golf. You're looking at the surrounds and the mountains or the whatever, or you want something spectacular rather than quality. That was quite an interesting point.
I mean, and again, sorry for this, but I mean, West Sussex is a bit of an outlier because it's not, next to Sunningdale and St. George's Hill and Walton Heath, and, it's kind of a bit out of the way. So if you didn't know about it, you probably would kind of miss it. But I recall my good friend Nick Edmond, who's written many books, golf, saying to me, back early on, Paul, you need to go to West Sussex. I mean, that's a really great space. And yeah, it is. But I can see how some people can diss it. I think it's a par 68. So, if I think about some of the golf people that I speak to here, if anything's not a par 72, it's shit. It's got back-to-back par 3s there. There's a ton of variety there. I mean, it's each scene's somewhat different. There's some water, there's up and down holes, there's long hole, short holes, there's humps and bumps, trees, no trees. So, to me, it kind of epitomizes a place that I could play. And, it's a really cool journey through the property, and it's visually strong. And there's so many cool little features there that, again, that my wife and kids would, I think, go, wow, that's cool. So, yeah. And then and then on top of that, it's a good strategic feast too. There's some strong holes that you've got to think.
Well, that's great. That's exactly what we look for. And that we rank it 31st in GP&I or something like that.
Okay.
So it's right on that edge, whether it's in the top 100 or not in the world. Okay. Obviously there's beasts like Royal St. George's or, things that are just are famous for lots of different reasons, we should probably call it there. Thank you very much, Paul, for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure to hear a very unique perspective on golf course architecture because of your life experience, and what you're doing now is very different to what a guy trying to make it, just making 18 holes in the UK and America, It's much more, it's so interesting. It's fascinating. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you. Yeah. I mean, I do tend to waffle a lot. At least my team say that. So I hope I haven't done too much waffling, and it's been fun.
Top100golfcourses.com has set the standard for golfers worldwide, and now you can wear that standard proudly. Premium apparel and exclusive gear for those who truly know the game. Shop now at top100golfcourses.com.